this is probably a comment that you might not expect, but to me, there are a lot of kids shows out there. There are a lot of educational shows out there. I think the thing that struck me the most, which sounds strange, but is the empty spaces in Out of the Box. So many shows and so many programs, they're just coming at you, and
Right.
kids don't get think time. They don't get process time. And not just for students with disabilities, but for children in general, especially with the age group that I'm assuming that they're trying to target. Students need think time. They need a little downtime to process, to mull it over, to soak it in, and that's just brain research. And I really liked and appreciate how when they discuss a concept or a thought or vocabulary or a single song, there's always a little space before, a little space after. There's, the location of the show takes place in one, kind of one location. They're not zipping and zooming all over the place. It really gives time for students and children to really ponder and think and enjoy and participate and engage. I just feel like it was a very engaging show that seemed to be based somewhat on brain research.
Hello everyone, welcome to an episode of The Box Cutter, where we take apart an episode of Disney's Out of the Box to see if it still holds up. My name is Daniel, and my co-host for today is elementary school principal, Miss Laura Clark. How are you doing today?
I am great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So, what made you ultimately decide that you wanted to be in the field of education?
I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and so as the oldest child, I loved playing school with my siblings. I would set up I had a little blackboard, and I would set up little chairs in my room, and I would have them come and sit, and I would teach them things. And I don't know, I was very young. I think I really admired my teachers, looked up to them. They were very special people in my life. I did pretty well in school. I mean, it wasn't difficult for me. So it was a place where I felt comfortable and successful. And I just enjoyed learning. I enjoyed my friends. I liked everything about school. And I wanted to be a teacher as long as I could remember. When I was in high school, I was taking a typing class, and it was, kind of, I didn't enjoy it. And I went to the counselor's office and I said, can I get into anything else? And she said, you can be an aide in a special education class. I was 17 years old, and that's what made me fall in love with special education. So while I ultimately became a teacher, from 17 on, I was always going to be a special ed teacher. So special education was my heart, my passion, my love. And it's interesting that this is the episode that we are talking about, because there were, the sign language. And so it was kismet. It all came together. But education and learning have always just been something I've just enjoyed and loved. And I spent a lot of time in my private time, reading books and just learning, going places, traveling. I just adore learning.
So, you've mentioned special education being your passion. What shifted you towards wanting to be a regular curriculum teacher?
Yeah, that was a really hard decision. That was tough. I was actually the special education director in my school district. I worked at the district office. I was a pretty high level management. And the problem with that is that when you're that high level in special education, you spend most of your time with lawyers and judges and dealing with some pretty hairy. Special ed is very litigious, and so I was no longer, working on programs and learning and with students and really, really feeling like I was making a difference. It was
Mm-hmm.
the higher you go, kind of the more headaches you're dealing with instead of, the beautiful things that you love. So when the opportunity came up to be a principal, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give that a try. So, I may go back to special ed someday. I love it very much, but I do find that being a principal puts me in a position with my background knowledge to be able to more quickly identify students with special needs, to
Mm-hmm.
get them assessed, get them the services they need. I think my knowledge and background really helps me support students and families of students who are struggling. So I think it all was meant to be. But who knows where I'll end up next? I don't know.
Well, I mean, you definitely seem like a very, enthusiastic go-getter type of person. You seem to not wait for the problem, but rather go directly to it and tackle it head on. You have such a charisma about you. And I wish I had a lot more teachers and educators in my life that were more like that. I feel like, from my experiences of, being an educator for 5 years or so, is that people come in hopeful, like, yeah, I'm going to, you know, make a difference to these kids, and then by the time like it's their first year, they're burned out, and then they find it easy to slip down the path of, you know, of like these kids aren't, going to change and they're a product of their environment and all that. But it's like it's so easy to go down that road, but it's a lot more satisfying, and it's a lot more effective to try and persevere and keep going. Of like, yeah, maybe I can't, get through to all of them, but as long as, I stay true to myself, and I, remember why I'm doing this, then, I'll make a difference in some of these children.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that was very well said, extremely articulately addressed, because it can be a difficult career. It can be a very, very difficult career. And sometimes, at night when you're laying in bed and you think, oh my gosh, am I losing hope? But you can't. When it comes to children, we can't. We have to persevere. We have to stay strong. It's their sweet little lives on the line here. And sometimes for, as for some of them, we are the light and the hope and
Mm-hmm.
the thing that keeps them going. And I know, and COVID's been tough with the pandemic, with, students not having access to us and what we have to offer and our resources. And some of them, I just can't wait to get back so that we can, take care of them and support their families. And they're going through a lot. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think you said that so well. It's easy to lose the energy, but you have to keep up the fight.
Right, right. And there have been times where, I'm just like at myself, like, why am I still doing this? Or like, I've just gone and I've just cried. Because I didn't, like I said, I didn't start out the best. I was very nervous. I'd always, in the back of my mind, always be thinking about, oh, I'm like too scared to do stuff because I do the wrong thing and then lose my job. But then I remember maybe this past year with this whole COVID thing, I guess because I had the class the whole time with me, and I was the only one there, like consistently every day. Only every now and again not being able to go, but letting them know ahead of time I have a test today or I won't be here today. Just the thing of I can't take things personally of what the kids say or what parents say. You know the answers, so don't worry about asking. Just do it, and then if it's something wrong, just adjust it.
And I think you're being too hard on yourself with how you started out, because all of us started out that way. I was truly terrible. As much as I thought that, this is my career and I've been trained, I have my credential. It's totally different, when you're face to face with, these little guys who need guidance, and you don't know what to do. So I think you're too hard on yourself, because all of us started out really struggling, but you have grown into such an amazing educator. Teachers request you, parents sing your praises. and I think what kept you going and what kept you improving was just your heart and your care. You're just an amazing, amazing person who never gives up and cares so deeply about others. And that's what has, over these 5 years, transformed you into just an amazing educator who is so successful. People request can't we get our kid in Daniel's group? I'm sorry, they're full. I mean, you could probably have all the groups in your room because of all the parents who request, the teachers who want their kids in your room. So I think that we all start that way, but we all don't end up the way you've ended up. So many praises to you for that.
Oh, thank you. So the episode we are talking about today is called Hands On. The episode starts with Tony playing on his drum, and while he waits, he notices the viewer, and he makes a mask using his hands. I could never do that mask, the weird one where you like bend your middle finger into your that thing. I can't do that. I could never make that mask. But definitely a cool little trick. And then he also showed the viewers how to make a an easier hand mask, glasses, hand glasses, or as I, more commonly referred to as binoculars. I never heard of, finger glasses, hand glasses. I've heard of binoculars, but not that. So he showed this, and then Vivian comes in with Alicia, Jill, and Matt, and they see Tony making hand glasses. So, monkey see, monkey do. They do the same thing as he does and try them out, except for Jill because she already has glasses. So, after they play around a bit, Alicia then notes to everyone how to actually say glasses with your hands. So, they make a little game of it. Jill and Matt at first are confused, like, what do you mean how to say glasses with your hands? And she mentions how her aunt showed her a few signs because I'm guessing her cousin might communicate with American Sign Language, which, noting, like, back in the 90s, I feel like it was kind of a trendy thing for kids shows to have, like, incorporated sign language in it. Like a side character or a character in one episode show up that happens to know sign language, and then they learn sign language to solve the day's problem and whatnot. So it was a lot more common to see it, but within, like, I guess from the 2000s to now, I never really seen a show, like, really too many shows, if any, use sign language as much as they did back in the 90s and the 80s.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's funny because I was looking, as I was watching this episode, I put my principal hat on and I was watching it as if it was a teacher giving a lesson, and I kind of had that frame of mind, and that whole beginning sequence with him with the drum and making his own hand kind of not signs but just hand motions, and then having Alicia come and share. It was all just perfect as a 7-step teaching lesson plan. That a lesson plan starts with what's called an anticipatory set, and that is to hook the kids and to hook them into the learning and get them interested in, like Alicia telling the story about her aunt. And I thought, wow, this is just such, again, research based. It was very clearly to hook a child in, to get them interested in the topic. And the fact that the whole episode has this theme was just really it's just so well done to tie it all together. And I just really, as an educator, I really appreciated how it just kind of followed the lesson plan sequence.
So after that, they play a little game where Alicia makes a few signs and everyone guesses what they are. So she makes a sign for baby, where you hold both your forearms together like you're cradling something and rocking it back and forth. Then she makes a sign for a smile, where she puts pinches both her hands next to her mouth and then arches them upward like a smile. And then she makes a sign for I love you, which, is basically the rock on sign. Yeah. But the kids were like, well, I don't know what that is. So she's like, oh, it's I love you, and then like we see Matt and Jill get up, and then like I guess, you know, kids being kids, they get closer, like just to be like this or like that. So I really like that they were like, you know, like being how kids are, like how do you do it, like this, like that, like. So that's what I like about that. So, you know, they say thank you after Alicia shows them a few, and she shows them the sign for thank you, which is your hand arching downward away from your chin. So after that, Tony and Vivian showed them a few signs that aren't sign language but are universal. You know, putting your hand to your ear, which means that we can't hear you. Thumbs up, meaning okay, and shushing. So then Matt also discovers that your hands can also be used to make sounds. And everyone then realizes all the stuff they can do with just their hands.
It's music time!
So, this first song is called Making Music with Our Hands. I really like the engagement part of it, where it's like, do this, you know, they're clapping, or like they're doing this, where they're patting their hands. It's a little slow, though, at first. I'm like, I was like, this is a little bad, but then I'm like, oh, no, I actually like this song. So, it's a bit dated, though, with the synth instruments, but I feel like it's still a pretty fun song. What are your thoughts, though?
Yeah, I mean, I think something that it goes throughout the whole episode, but something I like about it is that through each step they keep trying to involve the audience, you know, the viewer, the children who are watching, and so in that song also encouraging the audience or the viewer to join in and clap. I mean, again, that's a lot of great teaching methodology. They've got modeling. They've got total physical response. They've got engagement. They're constantly trying to engage the audience. So I think, yeah, this song wasn't my favorite song ever, but they are trying to, you know, get the students involved, children involved, and it's something that most people can do is clap. So, you know, I think it's engaging, which is important.
Yeah.
I didn't really find the melody catchy or, you know,
Maybe if they use different instruments, like, you know, something that wasn't keyboard.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
Like a $50 keyboard, because they probably didn't have the budget. Like, this is what you got? Make music with it. So, but I've kind of been using that with my teaching, where the first few days with summer camp, because my group, everyone had to pick an animal. I chose lemurs. And so I was teaching about different lemurs, like slow lorises, how they're poisonous because something in their armpits that they lick gives them poison, and ringtail, they like, you know, they do this with their hands to, you know, throw their stink from their tail because they have stink wars with each other. And eyes, which are these nocturnal lemurs that, you know, they're called eyes because people would run into them at night, and they're not the cutest looking thing in the world. So they'd get scared, and I guess they call it that because that's the sound people make when they, you know, stumble upon them. And mouse lemurs, which are like really tiny, cute little bug-eyed lemurs. And so I was like, okay, so now we're gonna make up a chant. So I want you guys to come up with stuff, and they're like, you know, they weren't really into it. But then I had someone be like, oh, what if, like, they're like, I forgot what they said, but they're like, oh, I like your idea. Why don't we make a chant where we use all the lemurs that we learned about in it? So, you know, like ringtail, ringtail, whoosh, whoosh, mouse lemur, eat, I, boo, boo, slow loris, go lemurs. So now,
how cute.
Everyone, so I modeled it for them, and then we did it, and then, you know, now everyone, you know, now we do it every morning before we start our lesson to help us wake up. So it was a little silly, but I was like, you know what, you gotta sell it to the kids, Daniel. Otherwise, they're gonna be, you know, not have as much fun. So
Exactly.
It is nervous. I've had the fear of, you know, of it's always, I guess, my biggest struggle being an educator was looking silly but now I'm totally fine with it, having to look a bit silly, because it's like you're trying to sell this to them, Daniel. You're paid to be silly.
A lot of being an educator to me is being an actor, not only because you have to behave more silly than you normally would, but sometimes you're just not in the mood, you're just, I'm tired, or, I've got something going on. So sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm Meryl Streep. I got to go in there today and act like nothing's wrong, or I have to go act silly. I mean, we're kind of actors, really.
Yeah, we're kind of actors. We're kind of, problem solvers.
Yeah.
Sports coaches, and we do a lot of things. Um, some people are good at some things, but as an educator, you have to be well rounded. And if you're not, you gotta be good on the pickup.
Yep.
Exactly. You gotta be adaptable. At the whole modeling with students and all that, it's I just learned to have fun with it, and it's like they feed off your energy. So if you're above it, they're going to be above it. So you have to be willing to be silly, because
exactly.
So yeah. So after all the clapping that they do and the sounds that they make with their hands, their hands are tired and they're stinging. I like the fact that they use the word stinging, like, because I guess it's because I was like, it's a little negative to say stinging, like a little severe, but I feel like it's the correct word to use. They could have been like, oh, my hands are tired. They could have gone that route. They went the route of saying that their hands were, stinging from all the clapping and the patting that they did. So that's what, I really appreciate that they're not shying away from using certain words that might have negative connotations attached to them. Because, the kids are saying, oh, my hands feel stingy. So, but what are your thoughts, though, about the, stinging and all that? Maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but...
No, I think you have a good point. One thing that we've been trying to work on is using higher level vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
And not only as a teacher that you use it, but you expect students to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even in kindergarten, we're using words like hexagon and polygon. And I mean, we need to be using, higher level words. And stinging is actually a very specific word that has a very, very specific type of feeling. And so instead of just saying it makes my hand hurt, to use that word stinging teaches more specific vocabulary and expands the vocabulary that students have at their fingertips, not only to use, but they can recognize, read it. And so I actually noticed that when they said that word, and I thought, wow, I'm glad they're being very specific and detailed in how they're explaining. So I thought it was great.
So Vivian offered the fun and messy solution, hand painting.
It's arts and crafts time.
So yeah, so the arts and craft is paper mittens. So they get paper, they get hand paint, they get some scissors and some tape. So it's a bit messy though, but I like that they're using like old, big, billowy t-shirts, like button shirts backwards as like smocks, aprons. I love that. I love that as a makeshift apron. Because, some people might not use aprons or have them around. So, a big old shirt from your mom or dad's wardrobe. Definitely a good solution for, messy projects. I also like that they had Tony and Vivian cutting out the paper for them. Because some kids show, it's like they have the kids, they show the kids, not this show, but some other shows. I can't recall any certain one, but I've seen it before where kids are using scissors and they're cutting it out and they're like jamming the scissors into whatever they're cutting, and that can be a little, it's a little reckless, but I always appreciate that they've always had Tony and Vivian cut things out for the kids to show that, have your parents cut out the paper for you. And also the use of tape rather than staples, because again, we want the kids to be safe. So, tape, just simple tape, you get it and you put it on and all that, versus staples where, it's a little bit more tricky because staples can get jammed and all that, and kids, might not understand why it's jammed and whatnot. So I really appreciate even though it's a little primitive, I really appreciate that they, were considering what how to do it, but how to do it in a way that's responsible and safe.
Actually, I felt differently about Vivian and Tony helping them cut, because a lot of times I think parents, if a parent's watching this with their child, they may not realize sometimes when they're helping too much. Sometimes that can be an issue when a parent does too much for their child. I mean, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I've sat in meetings with parents that say, "Oh, what kind of chores does a child do around the house?" "Oh, they don't do anything." "Well, how about taking the plate from the table?" "No, they don't. They don't do that." "How about making their bed?" "No, no, I make their bed." "How about pouring themselves a bowl of cereal?" "No, no, I do that." Where sometimes the students don't end up getting experiences, and they don't end up being able to be more independent, and I think sometimes it makes students more, they lose confidence about what they're able to do. And I think sometimes we need to kind of challenge them. And so I just hope that a parent who's watching wouldn't say, "Oh, okay, when it comes to doing a craft or something, I will, I'll do most of it and let them do part of it."
I see.
I just hope it's not discouraging independence.
Yeah, I can see that. Although I will say though, scissor cutting, I feel like I'm still adamant about the scissor cutting and that.
Yeah.
That I appreciate that they're doing it versus the kids, because kids, it's not one piece of paper. They're cutting 4 on top of each other, and it's a little
That's
hard
true.
to cut. But also, kids aren't necessarily aware sometimes, like spatially aware of where they might have their hand, and so they might accidentally cut themselves. But I totally understand why there can be concerns of over what's the word I'm thinking of, like
Supporting.
yes, over supporting and doing most of it, when the kids should be allowed to pick the paint that they want and pour it for themselves,
Right.
and paint, and use their hands to paint the mittens and tape it themselves, or draw out their hand outline. But just have the parents watch and cut out the mittens for them. So, but I
Yeah.
never thought of that, but that's a very good point you make there. But after they're done decorating their mittens, they hang them up to dry on a clothesline, and that reminds Vivian of a song she knows about the 3 little kittens.
It's music time.
So the song of 3 little kittens. This is one of my favorite songs. I really love this song. It's super cute, it's fun, it's very poppy, it's very engaging. I don't know, for some reason, do you know the girl group Bewitched? From like the 90s?
No.
Okay, so they're like a group from the 90s. Back when, boy bands and girl groups were totally the thing back then.
Yeah.
So that's what it reminded me of. It was very pop and all that. It's one of my guilty pleasures. Every now and again, I'll just like sing it to myself. And like after a nice day's work, I just like to sing some of these songs to myself. That's because
That's
they're
awesome.
catchy. Just to help with finishing things faster. But yeah, so they do the thing where they point up to the sky or down to the ground, left, right, and then circle their arms around. So I really like that part. That part's fun too. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and they were again encouraging the viewers, the students, the children at home to join in with them. And I feel like they really are good about drawing the audience in and making them feel a part of it, and having those physical responses. The only thing that I noticed when she said to the right, to the left, it was her right and her left. And I was thinking, oh, our kid's going to get this backwards now, because she's saying right and left, but the audience member, it was their
Yeah.
left and right. So anyway, I was like, oh, shoot. The kids at
Yeah.
home are going to point the wrong way. But anyway, that wasn't the
Yeah.
point. The point was is that they were getting involved. They were becoming part of it. And I thought that was great.
Yeah. Same thing with my students. Some of them, because they have mostly third, some second graders. They don't know their left from their rights. So I just gave them the simple trick of put both hands up, make an L with both hands. Which one looks like the L? That side. Okay, that's your left side. All right, got it. Great. Okay. So,
That's a
but yeah,
perfect
I think
strategy.
so. I think even though they might have gotten mixed up, I think that wasn't necessarily the real point of it. It was just more of like oh, here are the movements, so that way you can do it with this. So, and I really like that they aren't like all crazy and animated. Like, oh, come on, get up and do it with this. And like, I really like that they're very relaxed and just
Yes.
like, oh, you can do it with this too. So,
It's just an invitation. Yeah, it's not pressure or stress. It's just if you want to, yeah, it's great. Yeah.
so after they sing their song about 3 little kittens, the kids make the suggestion of acting out stories. So I really like that the kids made that suggestion because like now they're hooked, they're having so much fun, and they want to keep the fun going that they are confident enough to offer their own suggestions.
It's story time.
The story is the 3 little kittens. So I think it's one of the better stories acted out and played. We have Alicia playing the mom kitten, with Tony and Jill and Matt playing the 3 little kittens, with their mom making pie for them, and she's just so annoyed with how they eat, very sloppily.
Yeah.
Their hands are all covered with pie, and they're licking their hands, and she's just so disappointed in how messy they are. So, the next day, she makes pie for them again, and before they can eat, she says they have to wear these mittens in order to prevent their hands from getting dirty. Kind of sounds like COVID. Oh, you can't go out until you put this mask on.
Oh yeah, I didn't think of it that way. How funny.
I just thought of it. But, so yeah, so they're like, do we have to? I'm like, no mittens, no pie. So they put them on, and they're eating, and they're still being sloppy, but now it's all over their mittens. There's this one thing that Matt did that I really love. It's so cute. So they're eating their pie with their mittens, and then they ask for more pie, and so then he put his hands together and starts rubbing them, and then he opened them up again. I'm like, oh my god, this kid. So cute.
Yeah.
And she says, you can't have any more pie until, you go clean your mittens. So, again, like you say, they're given a task for themselves to do, given them an independent chore where they have to clean their own gloves, mittens. I'm getting tongue twisted. And then, so they go clean their mittens all sad and all that because they don't have any more pie. And then they hang them up to dry and go play in the field. And then after they're done drying, their mittens are gone. So they look all over the place, and they can't find them. So they are too afraid to tell their mom, though. But, they make the decision of being responsible and honest and telling, their mother that they lost their mittens. And rather than their mom being upset with them, she's like, okay, well, let me help you find them. So I really appreciate that, they showed that. They could have shown the mom cat being upset and just doing it herself, but they show that being honest is a lot more, it's a lot easier to be honest, even though you're scared, to be honest, and it might make things a lot easier.
Exactly. Good lesson.
So they look around for it, and then they see that it's in a bird's nest. All their mittens are in a bird's nest. And before they take them out of the nest, though, they notice that there's eggs inside this nest. So even though they're really tempted to want to take the mittens out of the nest, they realize, you know what? Some things are more important than pie. Because these eggs need the warmth from their mittens. So, the bird didn't know that they were mittens. They just took them because they felt warm and she needed them for their eggs. So, the mama kitten was very happy with her 3 little kittens that she says while she makes them another pair, they are allowed to have pie without their mittens on just this once. So
They're rewarded for their sacrifice, which is beautiful. if you sacrifice for somebody else, you might, still be able to enjoy what you wanted to enjoy, but it's more important to take care of others. I thought that's a great message.
So then they have a reprieve of the Three Little Kittens song. But this time, they found their mittens, and instead of looking for them, they see pie in the sky, pie on the ground, left, right, and all around. And I think it's really neat, because normally they just do 2 songs, and then a story, and then an arts and craft, but this time they incorporate the song with the story, because then after they're done singing and dancing, then Vivian concludes the story. So, everyone then recaps their favorite part of the story and whatnot, and then Vivian takes the kids home. And while Vivian taking the kids home, Tony mentioned all the cool things that we can do with our hands, including the part in the goodbye song, the rubbing, the snapping, and the clapping. And that was hands-on. So, any other thoughts on the episode?
This isn't just regarding this episode. This is regarding, the other one I've seen. It's great how they have the transitions. Like, it's music time, it's story time, and they have the same transition each time. And it's a great strategy for preparing kids for learning, preparing them for the next activity. It's, again, back to brain research. It's always better when the learner is able to prepare for what's coming. And that routine is really important as well, especially for children at that developmental level. And so I just feel like the way that the progression of the program goes and the wonderful transitions they have for each section really just, it keeps it moving, but it also makes sure that students are prepared or children are prepared for what's coming next. It's great. It's really good methodology.
Who would you say is your standout among all 3 of the children?
I would say Alicia exudes the most confidence. Is she the smallest one in stature?
I believe so.
Yeah, in my mind, she's the smallest in stature, so she probably is, but she just exudes a lot of confidence, and she almost seems like the leader in a way. I don't know why I would think that. I can't point to anything in particular, but she just seems like she's going to grow up to be president. I don't know. There's something about her that's very just solid.
Yeah, my standout this episode was Matt, because normally most of the time he's relaxed and he's chilled and he's very mellow. Because you told me that you saw Seeds of Imagination. In that episode, he's a lot more mellow and cool and all that. But in this episode, he was a lot more engaged of guessing what these signs mean, where it's like, oh, can you guess what this sign means? And he's like, a smile, or what does this sign mean? Be quiet, or the little hand rub he does in the Three Little Kittens story. So he was a lot more, because at first I always thought, he does well when he's relaxed, but when he starts to actually force the acting, it starts to become bad acting. And most of these kids are really good. I'd say they're really good as children,
right.
Child performers. But this episode proved to me that he can, be charismatic and engaged and excited and animated. But yeah, I mean, the wardrobes and the acting. It's like most of them say that they have a script, but it's I totally forget sometimes that they're reading off a script. That's how natural it comes off sometimes.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's go ahead and get to our verdict. The theme of hands, making noise and making signs, I'd say it's a very timeless theme. Everyone is always curious, oh, what can I do with my hands? I can snap my fingers with my hands. Oh, I can, I didn't know I could do this with my hands. I didn't know I could do that. Oh, how do you do that with your hands? So I thought it's a very timeless thing. I feel like it's back, I'd say it's we've always been enamored with what our hands could do for hundreds and hundreds of years as just people. So it's definitely a timeless theme.
I agree, and I think that the way that they do the themes, if you're an English language learner, I mean, having hands come up, and hands is something I mean, that's an easy vocabulary word, but you can build on that throughout the episode when they're applying hands to music and stories and art. And, it's something that we all have in common, and can really help build language for children who need support with that.
All right, so next, the music. The music in this episode, I'd say it's really good. It's very good, actually. Very engaged, unlike a few other episodes where it's just like the song and like you just get up and dance. Where this one's like they include you with the music, and the only issue being just to update the instruments and it would be perfect. But other than that, I'd say it still holds up. The arts and crafts, paper mittens. I feel like if this was a classroom arts and craft, like if I had a class and this was our arts and craft, I feel like it'd be easy art and craft to do. However, I feel like it's a little on the short side.
Yeah.
The setup is long, but then to do it is a little short. But I feel like it still holds up as like a very simple project to do with your kids or your class.
You could always expand it by doing hole punches around the outside of it and then having them string a yarn through.
There you go. That's a good one too.
Yeah, then it'll last longer and it'll, they can then attach it themselves.
That's a good one too. The story time. I feel one of the better stories I've heard from this season of Out of the Box. I'd say it's in my top 10. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the message of some things are more important than others, like being honest, or, self-sacrifice to benefit others. And, being selfless can, reward you. As long as, your intentions aren't, oh, I'm going to be selfish just so that way I can be rewarded. They were selfish because, they knew that it was the right thing to do.
Exactly.
So, and the overall acting in this episode, again, I forget sometimes that these kids read off a script, they do a table reading and all that. I forget that sometimes, because sometimes I just rewind, I'm like, oh my god, this is so cute. Oh my gosh, these kids. So, but yeah, I'd say the overall performance of everyone in this episode is really good. What about you?
Yeah, great. And I think they have really good energy, really positive. It's not, I think as a child, it would be hard not to overact. I think the temptation would be to overact, and I didn't see any of that. They're very positive and, like you said, natural.
So overall, though, hands-on still holds up. So Laura, I appreciate you making time for this discussion. You're such a great person, and I'm glad to be working with you. Hopefully, still in the future, work with you. Do you have any last-minute thoughts or anything you'd like to share?
I'd like to thank you also for including me, and I had never heard of the show before you had shared it with me. I didn't have cable at that time in my life, and so I wasn't able to see shows like this. So it's great to as an educator to just learn about new shows and to have another show, another possibility to help support students and to pass along to parents. And so thanks for including me in your show and teaching about Out of the Box. And it's just great to work with you, and just wish you all the best. Thank you.
All right, so make sure to leave a comment if you like what you hear. Why not subscribe? I put out new episodes on Saturday on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube, and now Spotify at the Box Cutter Podcast. Send all emails to theboxcutterpodcast@gmail.com because it takes a village to raise something beautiful. In the words of Tony and Vivian, so long, farewell, until we meet again.
Yummy pie!
And so the 3 little kittens lived happily ever after, eating pie whenever they wanted.